My name is Amanda, I'm 25 years old. Today I'm going to talk about the day that my parents ignored me for asking why they missed my wedding. So I smiled when they begged for help. It's a pleasure to have you here. Stay tuned until the end and tell me which city you're watching from. I want to know how far my story has gone. And click on like, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss the next stories here on the channel. I got married on a quiet Saturday afternoon. No church, no crowd, no white dress. Just me, my husband James, and two of our closest friends as witnesses. I wasn't expecting a fairy tale. I just wanted my parents there. They promised they would come. 2 weeks before the wedding, I called my mom to confirm the date and time again. She said, "We'll see. You know how your father is with last-minute things." Then she changed the subject to a sale at her favorite store. I let it go. I told myself maybe they were just uncomfortable with how small and simple the ceremony would be. Maybe they were expecting something more traditional. But they loved James. Or at least they acted like they did. The morning of my wedding, I texted both of them. "Today's the day. 3 p.m. Can't wait to see you." No response. James noticed how quiet I got while getting ready. He asked if I was okay, and I nodded, brushing mascara on in the mirror like nothing was wrong. I refused to let their absence ruin my day. I wanted to believe they'd show up at the last minute. That maybe they were trying to surprise me. But when I walked into that little courthouse room, holding James's hand, my parents' chairs were empty. 2 chairs. Right in the front row. I stared at them for a second longer than I should have. After the ceremony, our friends hugged us, took pictures, and James kissed me on the forehead and said, "You're mine now. We're our own family." I smiled. But inside I was hollow. That night I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. I tried my dad. Same thing. I left a message, trying to keep my voice even. "Hey, just wanted to see if something happened. We missed you today. Hope you're okay." I didn't hear back. Not the next day. Not the week after. No call. No text. Not even a cold excuse. 2 weeks passed. I sent one more message. "Can you please tell me why you didn't come to my wedding? I need to understand." No answer. Instead, I saw something else. My older brother posted photos of a barbecue. Family smiling. Mom and dad front and center. Burgers and beer. It was the same day. Same hour. June 14th. My parents had skipped my wedding to go to a barbecue. That night, I cried on the floor of our apartment, clutching the hem of my wedding dress. James sat beside me, rubbing my back in silence. I didn't want him to say anything. There was nothing to say. It wasn't just that they didn't come. It was that they didn't even lie. Didn't even bother to pretend something came up. It was the clearest message I'd ever received from them. You don't matter enough. Memories came rushing back. My birthdays they forgot. The high school graduation they left early from to beat traffic. The college acceptance letter I read to an empty room. Always a reason. Always something more important. And I always swallowed it. But this time I couldn't. Something broke in me. I stopped calling. I stopped trying. James's parents welcomed me like a daughter. His mom bought me a necklace with our wedding date engraved on the back. She said, "You're part of us now." And I believed her. Months passed. Seasons changed. I didn't hear from my parents. Not for my birthday, not for Thanksgiving. Not even a Christmas card. I let the silence grow. I watered it with acceptance. I fed it peace. Until one day, almost a year later, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Amanda, hi. It's your dad. He's not well. We need your help. Please." She was crying. I didn't cry. I didn't say much. Just listened. Quietly. Calmly. Like someone who no longer bleeds from that place. And when she said, "Can we come stay with you for a while? Just until things settle down?" I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I finally understood what it meant to be needed. By the people who once made me feel invisible. And I had a decision to make. One they would never see coming. I didn't say yes right away. When my mother called asking to stay with us, I told her I needed to talk to James first. That was only partly true. What I really needed was time to feel the weight of her voice again, soft, needy, fragile, and to decide if I still cared enough to hold it. James didn't hesitate. It's your call, Mandy. But just remember, you owe them nothing. And he meant it. He wasn't angry or bitter. He had simply watched the years of quiet rejection I never wanted to admit. He had seen the messages ignored, the birthdays skipped, the calls that always ended in me apologizing for something I didn't do. Still, something in me wanted to say yes. So I said it. They arrived 2 days later. My father looked thinner, older. He had lost weight, his skin dull and eyes sunken. I hadn't seen him in almost a year. My mother looked tired, but in that performative way I remembered. Like everything she did was a scene. She hugged me like nothing had happened. "We missed you," she whispered. I didn't respond. James offered to take their bags to the guest room. They had barely walked in when my mother started crying again. "It's his heart," she said. "And now your brother is so busy with the kids, we didn't know where else to go." I noticed what she didn't say. She didn't say sorry. I led them to the guest room, gave them towels, explained where everything was. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. I felt like a hotel receptionist welcoming strangers. That night, James and I lay in bed, eyes wide open. "Do you think this is a mistake?" I asked. He turned toward me. "No. I think it's a chapter. Doesn't mean you have to keep the whole book." Days passed. They stayed quiet at first, polite. My father barely spoke. My mother tiptoed around me, offering to help cook, wash dishes. I let her. I watched how she moved through my kitchen like it was unfamiliar. Because it was. On the 5th day, I came home from work and found her rearranging my spice rack. "You don't mind, do you?" she asked, turning to smile like the old days. "I do," I said, not smiling back. She froze. Like she hadn't expected pushback. Like the daughter she remembered would have just said, "No problem, Mom." The next morning, I found her crying at the kitchen table. "I don't know how we got here," she said. I did. But I stayed quiet. My father's health was clearly deteriorating. He had trouble getting up the stairs, lost his appetite, slept for long stretches. I scheduled a doctor's appointment for him. I drove him. I sat beside him. I watched the doctor explain things my parents had ignored for too long. "He needs rest, medication, and less stress," the doctor said. I did what needed to be done. Not because I forgave them, but because I couldn't become them. One night, after tucking my father into bed, I found my mother in the living room, flipping through one of our photo albums. She stopped at a picture of our wedding. Just me and James. No parents. No family. She looked up. Her eyes were red. I should have been there. I waited. She didn't continue. "That's it?" I asked. "You should have been there?" "I didn't know how to show up," she said. "Everything was so rushed, and your brother." "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't talk about Ryan. This isn't about him." She nodded, swallowing the rest of her words. I could see her trying. But trying now felt like patching holes in a boat that had already sunk. I stood up. "I need time. I'm still angry. I can't pretend this didn't happen." "I understand," she whispered. But I wasn't sure she did. Because the next morning, she acted like nothing had been said. She made pancakes. She laughed with James. She complimented the weather. Like apology could be folded into breakfast. That night I told James, "She wants things to go back to normal." He nodded. "Let her want. You don't owe her normal." A week later, I found out the truth. I was cleaning up in the guest room while my mother was out buying groceries. In the drawer of the nightstand, I found a stack of printed emails. Conversations between her and Ryan. The day of my wedding, June 14th, was marked clearly in their exchange. "Ryan, are you sure you're not going? Amanda's gonna be pissed." "Mom, she'll get over it. You know how she is. Always so dramatic." "Ryan, still feels cold, Mom." "Mom, it's her choice to do this without a real wedding. If she wants to play grown-up, she can deal with the consequences." My hands shook. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the paper like it might catch fire in my hands. She hadn't just forgotten. She had chosen not to come. And she didn't regret it. Now she was here, sleeping under my roof, eating my food, acting like the pain was some kind of misunderstanding. I wasn't angry. I was done. I put the emails back, closed the drawer, and started making a plan. Not to punish, but to protect what I had built, what they were never part of, and never would be again. What would you do if it were you? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe and activate the bell to receive all notifications so you don't miss the next story. The plan wasn't cruel. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, like most of my life had been. I started by setting boundaries. Not with speeches or confrontations. Just quiet changes. Dinner was served at 6. If they weren't at the table, they missed it. No laundry for guests. No driving them around unless it was a medical need. I removed the spare keys from the drawer and didn't say a word about it. My mother noticed first. Amanda, where are the keys? I wanted to run to the pharmacy. I can go with you Friday, I said, not looking up from my laptop. She hesitated, then sat back down. I saw her confusion, maybe even hurt. But I didn't flinch. James supported everything quietly. He didn't celebrate what I was doing, but he knew what it meant. Then came the hard part. I told them they needed to look for other living arrangements. This was never permanent. I said one night after dinner. It's been 3 weeks. I think it's time to start thinking ahead. My father just nodded slowly, as if he'd been waiting for it. My mother looked like I had slapped her. You want to kick us out? I want my house back. My space. You always did push people away when they needed you. I didn't respond. That kind of sentence used to sink me. Now it bounced off. A few days later, she came to me with tears in her eyes again. We don't have many options, Amanda. Your brother can't help. We thought maybe you. You made your choices, I said calmly. Now I'm making mine. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about justice. It was about clarity. They had chosen not to stand by me on the most important day of my life. They had made peace with that. Now I was making peace with letting go. Still, something in me softened when my dad fell in the hallway one morning. I heard the thud and rushed over. He was pale and disoriented. I helped him to bed, called his doctor, arranged a nurse to visit. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just handled it. That night, my mother knocked on our bedroom door. Amanda, can we talk? I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She stood in the hallway, arms crossed like she was holding herself together. You were always the stronger one. You know that, right? I didn't answer. We didn't know how to deal with you. With how different you were. You never needed us, and maybe we resented you for that. You're wrong, I said. I needed you more than anything. I just stopped showing it when it stopped working. She looked down. I'm sorry. You're sorry now because you need me. That's not the same. And I walked away. The next morning, I called an assisted living center nearby. A kind woman named Susan answered. I told her about my father's condition, about my parents' situation. Within a week, we had a tour scheduled. My mother resisted at first, but I didn't give her room to argue. James and I drove them there, showed them the room, explained the services. My father said very little. My mother looked around and said, "It's small." "It's safe," I replied. That night, she tried one last time. "You're really going to leave us here? I'm giving you the best I can without giving up myself." She didn't understand. Maybe she never would. But that was the end of it. They moved in a few days later. I visited once a week. I brought groceries, made sure bills were paid, checked on my father's medication. But I never invited them back. Not to my house. Not to my heart. Some things, once broken, shouldn't be forced back into place. And for the first time, I felt light. I came home after their move and sat on the porch with James. He handed me a cup of tea and asked, "How do you feel?" I looked out at the quiet street. The flowers I planted months ago were blooming now. Like I finally shut a door that was never really open. And it didn't slam. It just closed. Softly. Finally. The visit started as obligation. Every Saturday morning, I would stop by the assisted living center. I brought fruit, sometimes books, occasionally cookies my father liked. We would sit in the little garden if the weather allowed. It was peaceful. almost too peaceful, like a waiting room for something no one wanted to name. My father never said much. He nodded, smiled faintly. Sometimes he asked about James. Never about my work. Never about our wedding. But he seemed softer. My mother, on the other hand, was all noise. Complaints about the food, the staff, the activities. She treated every visit like a performance. Look how brave she was, how generous for enduring. She once asked, "Do you come here because you care or because you feel guilty?" I looked her dead in the eyes. Neither. I come here because it's right. She didn't ask again. That fall, James and I bought our first house. A real one with a yard and a little porch swing. I didn't tell my parents right away. I wasn't hiding it. I just didn't want their voices in it. When I finally mentioned it during one of the visits, my mother blinked. "You bought a house and didn't tell us?" "We did." "Well, is it far? Are you moving away?" I shrugged. "It's 20 minutes from here." She looked wounded, but I could tell it wasn't about distance. It was about the reality that we were moving on. Later that week, I got a call from Ryan. We hadn't spoken since the wedding. He had made no effort to explain himself either. "Hey," he said. "I heard from Mom that Dad's not doing great. I was thinking maybe we could coordinate visits." "You mean so you don't have to come as often?" Silence. "Look, Amanda, I know things got weird. But they're still our parents. They were yours more than they were mine. And you knew exactly what they did. They just didn't understand. They made a choice. Don't rewrite it." He sighed. "Fine. But we should at least be civil. For them." I hung up. 2 weeks later, my father had a minor stroke. The center called me at work. I rushed there alone. James was out of town visiting his sister. I sat by his bed for 6 hours, holding a hand that had barely held mine. When he woke up, he looked at me and said, "You always showed up." That broke something in me. Not in a painful way. In a release. I didn't cry. I just nodded and whispered, "Yes, I did." After that, my visits changed. I still came every Saturday, but now I stayed longer. I brought crossword puzzles. I brushed his hair when the nurses forgot. I let my guard down, not for my mother, but for him. One afternoon, she caught me laughing at something he said. Something small. Some joke about pudding. After he fell asleep, she pulled me aside. "You still love him," she said. "Yes. He's my father." "What about me?" I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who had raised me but never mothered me. At the woman who chose appearances over presence. "You're someone I tolerate. Because I have to." Her lips tightened. "That's cruel." "No. It's the truth." She walked away without another word. That night, James and I sat on the porch of our new house. I told him everything. The stroke, the conversation, the pudding joke. "You're allowed to love him without excusing the rest," he said. "Just like you're allowed to keep her out of your heart." I rested my head on his shoulder. It was getting easier to breathe. I stopped bringing gifts. I started bringing presents. And the silence between my mother and me grew larger. But for once it didn't hurt. It felt earned. Like space finally had a purpose. Until the day my father didn't wake up. I arrived that morning with a scarf I had knitted for him. I found the nurse instead. The soft voice. The gentle hands. "I'm so sorry." He passed in his sleep. Peacefully. The room was still warm with the trace of him. I sat in the chair next to his bed for over an hour. I didn't cry. I thanked him. Quietly. For the one sentence he gave me. For showing up in the end. And I knew then. This story wasn't about reclaiming what I lost. It was about recognizing what never was. And choosing to live anyway. The funeral would come. The arguments. The decisions. The long, awkward silences. But that morning, sitting in that chair, I felt something unfamiliar. Peace. And I didn't let go of it. If you like stories like these, click like, subscribe, activate the bell and send it to someone you think will also like it.